Hello and welcome my friends. I am back covering a new mod, the Ordo Draconis by Whysofurious. This mod was in Warhammer 1 and I remember playing it a lot then, so I'm glad to show it off on my channel now. So in this video we're going to look at the units, and then as always look at the campaign in a separate video. All stats will be based on auto unit size and vanilla settings. So let's journey to Sylvania and look at this very unique and very elite new units that Whysofurious has created. So let's start with the Ords, and the most legendary of the Blood Dragon Order is Abarosh, the vampire who single-handedly killed a dragon in an epic duel which lasted a whole night and drank deeply from the blood-swayed beast. As you may have guessed, he is a combat monster, excellent armour, huge melee attack and a very high melee defence, with bonus to a charge of 12 and AP of 325. He is built for fighting one-on-one with his duelist ability, and you will not bet against him. While not a wizard, as the card shows, his ability in a fight makes up for this, and can definitely look after himself. Supported with his blood dragon kin, which is of course a lot of choice, as you will soon see, he will be very tough to take down. Abilities: he has Flag of the Blood Keep, which is on pretty much all the units mentioned here. Give him missile resistance, a regen ability from drinking the blood of a dragon, and last is armour, which adds a swirl around him, making it very difficult to get the enemy to get away from his sword. Abarosh is straightforward Yord and can pretty much be left to his own devices. He is tough, and with some support from some magic makes him one of the most vulnerable characters in the game. Next up we have Royal Harkin, the Grand Master of the Blood Keep, a vampire who believes in the vows of the knighthood. Another combat Yord, but weaker than Abarosh, and he's definitely one you need to keep an eye on, as the armour can only stop so much with that weak defence. Only 100 AP damage, but no other bonuses. He can maybe be used to deal damage to weaker heroes or Yords, specifically not a dedicated combat Yord, as well will cause some decent damage but likely used to fight, especially if the enemy is clad in armour. Sporting the Flag of the Blood Keep and the Blood Dragon's Hubris, which adds some much needed toughness to him. It's best to keep an eye on him at all times, as he can drop very low very quickly without much warning, so keep an eye on this Yord, especially if there's a very good dedicated Yord near him. He can summon a unit of Draconis Rites, which are very handy war-off spell. This spell allows him to summon some of these Rites just to help protect him, help him last just a bit longer. Last of the new legendary Yords, and of course they do have a standard vampire Yord to choose from if you need to, is yet another combat Yord. In Warhammer, it's a rare thing not to have a dedicated Yord to magic, but in this faction, unless you go run with a typical vampire, you only have these three of the legendary Yords. Keel was a member of the Knights of the White Wolf and devoted to his life to Orc, trying to become the greatest hunter. Realising his weak mortal body could never fulfill his high ambition, he followed Abarosh and now is training his melee prowess against any monster he can find. Like his master, his wish is to take on a dragon. He is also a very powerful anti-charge threat with a bonus of 10 and AP of 330. Slightly weaker armour and melee defence than Abarosh, he can definitely hold his own against most monsters. While not a duelist, he is more suited on taking on larger entities, like jumping on some cav which gets too close, or giants. With the Indepth Resurgence buff adding high melee defence to anyone around him, making that perfect support unit. And with another anti-charge bodyguard, making that combination a huge threat to any monsters. Our first hero is a potent one to say the least, with stats as good as some Yords. Castian was a trainer of the Blood Knights, so you kind of expect him to be a brilliant warrior, which of course he most certainly is. While lacking AP, he does have duelist and good around stats. A brilliant hero to get into the enemy's hero or weaker Yord, and can really cause massive damage with a few buffs, and he is a very effective fighter. A more unique hero now, as the stats, as you can see, are not exactly inspiring you with any confidence. He does provide an encouragement and a buff to make up for the lack of his stats, and he does hit pretty hard. The standard provides speed increases to unusual slow army. And of course this character is still a Blood Knight, so can be buffed by any Necromancer or Vampire caster to get those stats up. On the campaign he is more interesting, as I will show you his skill tree in that particular video. He can be mounted, so having him next to units of Cav makes that standard much more interesting. Onto the units now. Ordo Draconis have access to all the usual vampire count units. But of course you know all about them, so let's only focus on the new units. First up is the Whites at 800 points. If you're unworthy to join the ranks of the Blood Dragons, then you may become a White. And as you can see, they're pretty damn good as a small, tough tar pit unit. High armour and a silver shield, and can cause damage as well, with 8 anti-infantry and a small 8 AP damage. Obviously more expensive than zombies or skeletons. These can be used as a final layer before the enemy meets the Blood Dragon units, which of course are very formidable. By the time the enemy creep through this unit, they should be weakened significantly, and the Blood Knights can come in and finish them off. The Foot Blood Knights with shields really show what this army is all about. This is the first of and the cheapest of the Blood Knight units, but there's only 60 of them, so remember that. And as in with all the foreign units, getting surrounded is very easy to happen and can be very costly. So cheap meat shields are vital at keeping numbers reasonable. This unit however is a tough, solid unit. I personally would not use any of these units which will fall in the front line due to the lack of numbers. But they're all tough with high armour, and in this case a shield. Where a frenzy is standard, these units can be a slow grind for any army unless they go against the units themselves. All Blood Knight units have the Blood Knight's hunger, giving them a constant regen combat, unless they start to break, making it even more pain to kill in combat. If you want more damage than defense, then go without the shields version. With a much better melee attack and a bonus of infantry to 9. And of course that frenzy means they will do the damage at 1550 cost. As all these units are very expensive, so be mindful of your dark magic as you play this faction. A great counter attack unit, so use meat shields to stop a charge and launch these in on the counter. As the final choice of the Foot Blood Knights, you have these versions, the Halberd. They have high melee defense, and of course that massive halberd to deal out some good damage. With about 50 defense and the usual high armour, this unit is tough and has got AP of 28, and anti-charge bonus of 17, making him an affordable killing unit. They're perfect to lock down the flank, as nearly all Cav will think twice before going against this particular unit. But they are expensive at 1650 points, so you are paying for that anti-charge deterrent. We do come across some heavy Cav faction, like Bretonia, or a very heavy monster faction. Bringing a unit or two of these will be most welcome. With my new favourite unit name, Foot Disciples of Death, and these certainly live up to that title. Very hard hitting with frenzy, and high armour with a shield and solid defence, making this unit a real problem for the enemy. But it is 1800 points, and there's only, of course, 24 models, so you need to pick your target well. Best used against a weakened unit or an elite unit which has fewer models. Ideally if it's already been weakened. Each one will be tough to take down, but each model is a huge brawl, so get ready on the heals, and some defense buffering magic would not go amiss. All these units you need to carefully manage and make sure you pick the right time to attack. They're of course very tough, but one misclick and leave them in the open against Cavalry will quickly remove these from the game. So what happens if you go with Blood Knight, a great weapon? Well, you get this unit. And it's a high damage death unit. Again, 1800 points, and back to a nice 60 unit. These have huge AP at 38, and an anti-infantry bonus of 8. While the others in this list are pretty decent at looking after themselves, this unit has a low melee defense, and always used as a flank attacker. They are slow, but if you had a spell like Dance Macabre to get them there quickly, they can get onto that flank with a nice charge and they can be really good at disposing of infantry. Definitely don't let this unit get attacked from behind, and if possible, have a unit to cover the flank. Even some spawn zombies would really help, as rear charges can really hurt this Yogg defense unit. Another anti-infantry unit with even crazier stats. Coming at 1950, the Foot Disciples of Blood have frenzy and regen with nice armour, and are just a brute force of a killing unit. With that regen and high defence, they can hold their own against most units. But as always, that Yo mod account, so always be prepared to run with a horde of the undead to help choke up the enemy. It is worth mentioning that the AP damaging missiles are the bane of this faction, and of course artillery, with one well-placed cannonball, they could really wreck this unit. Being so low, they really do suffer when a few models have disappeared quickly. Of course, they are quite a small unit, so actually hitting them is a bit of a challenge, but if you can be at all possible, make sure you lock that unit of artillery down before you advance these high hitting, high damage dealing death machines. And Elite of Elite Greatsword unit now, at 2200 points. So you need to get your money's worth. Huge damage from this unit at 46 AP, and a large charge bonus means you need that charge to weaken the unit down. The Foot Disciples of the Dragons are so powerful that even yours are not safe, and as there are only a handful of them at 24 models, they do have 60 weapon strength each, so they can certainly do the damage against any Yord. As always, make sure you can weaken the units before you charge these in, and then they will be carved up with this high damage dealing unit. Personally, as they can protect themselves somewhat, I can just use this unit to bounce across the battlefield, picking out weakened targets, hopefully moving my front line forward. Before we move on to the new cavalry choices, let's look at the two regiments in a round for the infantry. First, starting off with Van Style's Vanguard at 2100 points. This very potent anti-arch threat is an excellent cavalry countercharge unit, or monster killer, as those 60 models and that high defense and high armor, and of course this one has sundering as well. Add to that the damage from the bonus of the Arch of 18 and the AP of 28. If that's not enough, they have a sneaky charge ability which increases their speed by a large 6%, making them cover the ground very quickly. A very potent anti-charge unit. It can easily kill cavalry, and even the elites of the cavalry are not completely safe from this particular unit. Lastly, we have a 2800 points unit. Yes, I said 2800 points, which is even more than a normal Dreadsaurian. This infantry have pretty much Yord stats, with huge amount of armour, frenzy regen, 8 bonus for his infantry, and magical damage, making even chaos units decide it's time to worship a new god. This monster of a unit will wreck anything, and has the ability to terrify a unit for 30 seconds with its abilities. A truly walking death, but it is overpriced and silly expensive. But, as most of the units in this roster, it is a lot of fun to use. Now onto the new cavalry, and first are Knights of Arena. They are cheap, well-ish, charging cavalry. Yo stats, remember they do have frenzy and they have stalk for reasons. How horses can hide, well, whatever, it makes them even more useful, and at 1100 points it's a very good price for some cheap, sneaky units for running down any missive infantry. They also have a shield, and such high armour makes them quite durable against any incoming fire. A very useful unit, and not to be overlooked. The initiates of the dragon are more expensive, and a big heap above the arse unit, at 1500 points. A very hard hitting on the charge unit, with of course frenzy, and a bit tougher in a fight, but is it worth that 450? Well, they use that rather handy stalk. There is another ability to talk about, adding plus 10 to melee when winning combat, which is handy when chasing down those rotating units. But on the whole, I possibly prefer the first unit because you do save 450 points. Next up is a very good unit at 1600 points. However, throw it into the fight and forget about it. Maybe add the odd buff to increase its melee attack, but it can be easily left to its own. It's got strong defensive stats, and with that 60 model count, quite a tough unit to take down. A rarity in most armies, this unit can be just thrown in, and you're quite safe in the knowledge that it will be there when you come back to check on it. Of course, the damage is not massive, but for a cav force which can hold its own in a fight one-on-one, it is a good unit to have. At 1750 points, the Blood Knights with great weapons allow you to have some heavy AP on the field. They're not a massive increase in stats, but they're good at what they do and can really help carve a unit up with that high armour. They're not good one-on-one, so it's best run with a couple of these units, or mix them up with a much tougher unit like the Arse one, and allow these to bring the charge in and do that heavy AP damage. The next couple of units are Regiments of Renown, which I've decided to put here due to their cost. This one, 1082 points, are the Knights of the Red Death. This is a very good charge unit, which can at least defend itself in a fight if it gets caught. Not the highest damage, as it mainly comes from that big charge, but they can certainly put the hurt down. Add to the fact, you get the Butchers of Ostworld ability, adding attack, bonus to the charge and terror, making this a fine unit for the price, and a must in a charging army, so it's only a shame you can only have one of them. The other unit at Regiment of Renown are at 2000 points with Drakenhof Templars, an excellent cav killing mobile force. They have the AP, they have the anti-arge at 28-2, and they have a wedge formation, and it's the only unit in this faction who has this. Also, they have the Unbound ability, and a really large bonus to damage as well as defense, making them very tough. Just keep that leadership high to keep all these buffs going. Another elite grindy cav, with Disciples of Blood at 2100 points are a nice good unit of grindy fighters. And I like these units, as I mentioned before. You can throw them in and forget about them. This is just a much better version. Stats increase all around, and one unit you can happily leave and be pretty confident that nothing out there can actually kill it. Well, definitely not quickly. Another hard-hitting and charging unit now, the Disciples of the Death. High armour, really high melee defense, and some decent melee attack, and a nice anti-arge bonus of 12. This is a great anti-cav unit. If you don't like the look of that dragon, send these in, and give up to that Blood Dragon Order. The cost is obviously prohibitive at 2200, and the lack of models means they can be overwhelmed easily. So make sure they've got a good backup if you sense any more units come to help protect the thing they're attacking. But pretty much one-on-one with any large unit, they will more likely kill it. Much like the Disciples of the Death, the Ants version, this unit is the same cost at 2200 and provides another anti-large threat, with nice high defense but your melee attack. They differ from the Arse unit, as they provide terror, which is always nice, and as only a few of these Bloodline units have that terror mechanic, and a big ward save on their physical resistance, making them durable when they get tied down. I personally take the other unit myself due to the high combat stats. Terror is nice, but I've always preferred the killing potential of the previous unit. The most expensive cav unit on the roster, 2300 points, and at this price you get no weaknesses. Just hard hitting units provide an excellent AP and give them the real threat against any infantry force. Use them to crew up units, and you can leave them to fight all day long, and they will kill whatever they face. And the Arse units we can look at are the Ringed Nightmares. This hugely mobile and an excellent charge with very high melee attack. And at only 1900 points, this is a great choice as that for a mobile anti-arge threat, or helping get rid of that annoying artillery. Use this unit to charge into the back of any weak unit, or support any other unit which is in trouble. A very good all-round utility unit, which I recommend providing at least one in every single army you make. And there we have it. Quite a roster which Whysofurious has put together. Coming up will be the campaign video, which will be my next video. And until I see you in that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.